Hey, Dekoven, thanks for taking some time to chat today. This is just a quick call to give people who are considering Ecom Wealth Automation a real, honest perspective from someone who's actually been in the program. So I'll just ask a
Mhm.
few questions and let you share your experience in your own words about this program. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. Awesome. So before working with us, what made you start looking into something like this in the first place?
I want more for less. More coming in with less work. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people are attracted to with e-commerce. It's not the dawn of e-commerce, but there's still plenty of opportunity. Beyond that, I think diversification. Those are the two big drivers. I got a growing family, and just the more that I can be putting on, or putting into savings, the better. So yeah, those are the motivations, if you will.
Okay, perfect. And then when you were comparing options or looking into this opportunity, what about Ecom Wealth Automation stood out to you the most?
Perhaps a focus on eBay. I've had Shopify stores. I've seen other people with Shopify stores. And I knew that I wanted to diversify. Again, there's that word.
Mhm.
But I was watching my son with new and emerging tech like TikTok, and I was like, there's a trend line here, and I can follow it, or I can choose to be left behind. So, moving in that direction, I said eBay's next, and the results have been great.
Cool. Awesome. Did you have any doubts or concerns going into this, and how did those change once you got started?
Of course. I mean, I've been around the block, and this is the internet, so of course I've been scammed or been led towards scams before. So I needed to understand how we could lend each other trust, right? That was the big obstacle. Not is it possible to make money? It's trust. And I think that your personal touch, you personally being involved in the sales process, the onboarding process, and now with experience and having a store that's open, seeing you involved daily, that's really allowed me to not only feel trust, but extend more trust to you as the store grows.
Cool. Amazing. Thanks for that. And also for the onboarding process itself and getting set up, how much time was did you have involvement in as far as getting up and running? And how much involvement did you have once it was actually up and running?
Must not have been a lot because it's not standing out in my memory. I mean, I think that, again, like this is internet culture. If you're used to zooming between platforms and using passwords and, all that sort of stuff, then, sign up and onboarding here with you and your team is that easy. You've made it like an enterprise experience.
Okay, perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. And then also as far as compared to what you expected for time frame involved in the business, how hands off has it been so far? And how much time would you say you're realistically spending on it right now?
I'm laughing, Jason, because I hear from your team the most or the most vociferously because you need me to put in more orders. In other words, our success is breeding more success. And to scale, you need my involvement. So it's been pretty hands off, which has been exactly what I've wanted. But it does take my involvement. And that's just saying, hey, do I want to continue to grow at this rate or not?
Okay, perfect. That's exactly what we're trying to do too. So that's good to hear. And then as far as getting up and running, how long did it take you to see your first sales come in?
Again, this is not my primary source of income. It's not my primary source of attention when it comes to work. Um, but over a week, less than a month. I mean, I think it was, just a couple of weeks before the orders started rolling in, and I was able to see like order to order, like what is my return.
Yeah.
So it was fairly quick.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. The whole purpose of this is to make sure we're up and running quickly and generating sales as quickly as possible. So it's really good to hear. And then as far as the results so far, has anything surprised you about your results, or is that kind of what you expected them to be so far?
It's anything that is running, right? You just want to encourage it to run and perhaps run faster, right? I think what's been surprising is that for me, someone who considers himself an operator has been letting go, right? Really being hands off, not in terms of the operations, but perhaps in terms of the products, right? There's a tendency to want to be involved in, what is the store? What's the
Mhm.
experience of the store for customers? What products am I selling? What does this say about me? And I've been surprised by some of the products been listed, but happily surprised because they've been selling. So with that, I can continue to let go.
There's a lot of people going into this that feel this might be a risky investment or too good to be true because of the results that we're getting for our clients. And there's also a lot of scams out there. But what would you say to those people that are having some worries about this program?
Of course, there's risk, but it's about what kind of exposure to risk do you want to have. It's about your personal relationship to your personal risk profile. And when I size up the risk, on my desk, this one made sense. And what's more is, as I've shared other answers or other responses, I've been able to lend more and more trust to Jason and his team. So, do your due diligence. You'll see in the agreements that Jason puts on the table that, there are disclaimers. And he has a track record of, delivering results for clients. And I made sure to ask him for, those personal referrals so I can speak to them, one to one. And at every, question I've had about this process, he's been able to answer the call.
All right, before we wrap this up, is there anything else that's important about your experience with us so far that you didn't get a chance to touch on yet?
Yes, maybe just important to me, but in thinking through my experience, look, oftentimes I want to sign up for a service like this and then fire the vendor as quickly as possible. Why? Because I've learned from them what their operations are, what the ins and outs are, how to dot the I's, cross the T's, and now I want to go and do it myself. This has not been a guru type relationship in which, I'm learning how to stand up my own eBay store. That's not my experience of you, Jason, or your services. This has not been a masterclass or a community. I could have chosen something like that, and I leaned away from it. This has really been a vendor vendee relationship. This has been a service business. And I got to say, I've enjoyed it. I do not have the skills right now to stand up my own eBay business. I also don't want to anymore. I'd rather just chase, you know, this winning system and these winning products. So that's what I'm going to continue to do, and excited to see my store scale.
Perfect. Awesome. Those are all great answers, and we are happy to have you in our program. And thanks again for taking the time and sharing your experience with us and everybody that's going to be watching this. And I know this will be really beneficial for the people that are going to, think about getting started into this program.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Talk to you soon.